It's like putting water on a boiling pot, and we think that we're being kind by not upsetting somebody, by not saying no, by just being Mr. Yes Man or Yes Woman. And then eventually that lid can't be contained anymore and it blows off because we get angry. Our bodies, our souls, our hearts, our minds, whatever parts of you are activated explode because you just can't take anymore. It is okay to say no. No, it's actually encouraged to say no. When you say no to something, you are saying yes to something else. You're often saying yes to yourself. I didn't used to be able to set boundaries, and today I am going to take you through some easy actionable steps about how you can start or you can strengthen your boundary setting skills. Boundary setting is everything in life. Nobody is going to come up to you and say, hey, it looks like you're overwhelmed. Or, hey, I noticed that we've put too much on your plate at this job. No. You are going to have to say no and start putting boundaries up so people stop taking advantage of you. If you're like me, you might have grown up thinking that it was your job to please everybody. I'm here to tell you today it is not. My name is Matt Gerlach, and welcome to Matters of the Mind, Rise to Your Worth. I am so happy you're here today, and this is a topic that means so much to me. I work with high-performing individuals, entrepreneurs, executives, lawyers, doctors even, and I help you create lives that are fulfilling and abundant and aligned with your true values, with what you want from your life. By doing that, you fall in love with your life and your life feels incredibly fulfilling. And it is my deepest pleasure in the world to be able to help you achieve the life that feels amazing for you. And thank you for joining me today. So, boundary setting has changed my entire life. And I grew up in a family where we didn't have a lot of boundary setting skills. It was generationally passed down. There was a lot of passive aggressiveness, a lot of expectations to read somebody's mind. And it started to affect me really bad when I started my business. Before I started my business, I worked for corporations that there was HR departments and it's not like that they don't overload you sometimes with things, but generally there was enough people around to make sure that work was dispersed and that I wasn't necessarily having to absorb everything. When I started my business, I like to say that at this point, when I started my business, I had no business starting a business because I lacked the ability to advocate for myself. And I was going after any client that would pay me. I was doing anything that I could possibly do for them rather than being specific about what it was I actually offered my clients. And I never said no to anything because I was afraid if I did, I would upset them. It went beyond just business. In my personal life, with friends. Luckily, I always had really good friends around me. I don't necessarily feel like I was ever taken advantage of, but I wasn't really able to prioritize myself. I wasn't really able to say no to something that I didn't want to do because I was afraid that if I said no to something, I might upset somebody. I read a book once called The Disease to Please, and that really spoke to me because I realized that I had been living my life thinking it was really my job to take care of other people before I took care of myself. Don't get me wrong, it's really nice to take care of other people. I am a very compassionate, generous person, and I'm really proud of that. But at the end of the day, we need to put our oxygen masks on first. There is a lot of benefit in setting boundaries because, first of all, you're taking care of yourself, but everybody should be setting boundaries. And I've seen in my life that by me showing people how I'm setting boundaries, I'm helping them learn how to set boundaries too. If you're like me, you might have grown up in a household where setting boundaries or saying what you needed or trying to express your needs when you didn't really know how to effectively and kindly and maybe even gently say what you needed, you got punished for acting out. Acting out is really just a form of our expression, our trying to express our needs. And as adults, we act out too. I'm sure you have people in your life who are passive aggressive or who get overly angry when their needs aren't met. These are all just mechanisms. These are all just byproducts of not being able to effectively and compassionately express our needs. And I think what happens, I actually know what happens, is that it's like putting water on a boiling pot, and we think that we're being kind by not upsetting somebody, by not saying no, by just being Mr. Yes Man or Yes Woman, and then eventually that lid can't be contained anymore, and it blows off because we get angry. Our bodies, our souls, our hearts, our minds, whatever parts of you are activated explode because you just can't take anymore. It's really important that we proactively say to ourselves and to other people what we need, what we don't need, what we don't want to do. By saying no to something, we are actually saying yes to something else. And it's not always easy. I have been there. I want to talk today about a couple of actionable steps that really make boundary setting easy. And I want to start with just reminding you that by you setting a boundary, you are doing your friends, your family members, your coworkers, you're doing them a favor because you are going to be kinder, you are going to be gentler, you're going to be operating within your window of tolerance when you're around them. So many people, I would venture to say that over half of the population of the world doesn't know how to set boundaries well because we were encouraged to always be helpful, to never want to rock any boats. I think about this all the time, and nobody should be pushed outside of their window of tolerance. Nobody should be doing things that aren't feeling good for them. And when we don't develop these boundary setting skills, we start to, what I call, betray ourselves. We start ignoring what we need for ourselves. It's like we are standing in hot water and we're afraid to step out because we don't want to upset somebody. We are supposed to step out of that hot water. And by us setting boundaries, by us compassionately and kindly telling somebody, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that today. Or no, I'm sorry, that is not in my job description. Or actually, I've been filling in and doing this thing for a while, but I need to let you know that I want to start arriving to my daughter's soccer game on time and I can't do this for you. Or, I think a lot of times we have trouble saying no to our family members. If our mom is saying to us, hey, I want you to bring the kids over to my house on Saturday so I can see them, but it's really not good for you. We need to set boundaries because we need to prioritize ourselves. And it took me a very long time to do this. But when I learned how to do it, everything in life changed. And I want to let you know that boundary setting has a very immediate payoff. And this is really the first part about this. So you, not only are you setting an example for others, you're showing your kids, you're showing your peers, or you're even showing your parents. I know by me setting better boundaries, I've shown my mom, I've shown my brothers, I've shown the people that I grew up with, I've shown them how to set better boundaries. And we've realized that nobody's going to blow up when we set these boundaries because we are just taking care of ourselves. We're prioritizing ourselves. If you've been following me for a while, you know that my message to the world, how I changed my life, how I healed, how I grew, it was really boiled down to just this small phrase of learning how to prioritize myself. And I know that could sound selfish, but when we prioritize ourselves, when we are recharging our batteries first, we have so much more to give for other people. When I look back to like 10 years ago before I could set boundaries, I was a passive aggressive jackass. Honestly, I was like, I was constantly upset. I was constantly disappointed. I was not able to say, hey, I don't want to go here. So I'd go and I would just be miserable. I'd poke fun at things. Oh, like that's what you're wearing. Or, oh, that's what we're eating. Or that's what we're doing. But instead of going and doing that, I needed to speak up and say, I actually don't want to go. So I want you to remember this. When you start setting boundaries, The first thing you need to remember right now is that you want to start with small things, small boundaries. Telling a friend, like, hey, I actually don't want to have pizza for night. We had pizza last weekend. I would really like to order Chinese food instead. Or telling your partner, like, actually, I don't want to go to your mom's house today. I'm really tired and I've had a hard day I've had a hard week at work, and I actually need to stay home and recharge my batteries. It's probably not going into your boss's office and laying down the law and saying, listen, buddy, you've been asking me to do this project every week and it's taking 4 hours a week and it's not part of my job description. I don't like doing it. That is probably not where you start, but that's where we're building up to. I want you to remember this also. When you are setting boundaries, there is a very immediate payoff. It's hard. It's so hard to think about, like saying no to somebody, upset somebody, rocking a boat. But when we set a boundary, there is this immediate payoff. We're getting ourselves out of a situation that's agitating us. We're getting ourselves out of something that doesn't feel good. There is going to be immediate relief. And whether that other person blows up or whether that other person responds in a negative fashion, that's not your responsibility. Of course, we don't want to hurt somebody else, but there's an immediate payoff in that you're getting yourself out of that situation, and you're also learning a lot about that other person you're setting a boundary with. I look at one thing that David and I have started doing in our lives, and it's really been working fantastic. We learned it from Brene Brown. She's an author. She's a researcher. She talks about shame and vulnerability. And like at the end of the day, we kind of take turns taking Bruno out, our French bulldog. But there are times where it's just like assumed that Matt takes the dog out after dinner. That's kind of my role. I do take the dog out after dinner. But if I have too much on my plate, I will ask David, hey, how is your bandwidth right now? And then he, kind of probes a little more. Hey, what I mean is that I can't really easily take the dog out right now. And he will, and we'll engage in a conversation. And he might say, and we've learned to keep this at a very, I'm at a very friendly and just compassionate, I think compassionate's the word I want to say, a very compassionate level. 90% of the time, he'll say, I absolutely have the bandwidth to do this. 10% of the time, he's going to say, actually, Matt, I am really tired right now. Or he probably wouldn't say I'm really tired right now. He'd probably say, actually, I have a big project, or he just started a bakery, actually. So it might be that I have 24 cookies to make right now. And if you can do it, you might actually have more bandwidth than me. We actually kind of will, on a scale from 1 to 10, say, hey, I'm at a 2 right now. And if David's like, well, I'm at a 1, then I'm taking the dog out. But if I'm at a 2 and he's at a 6, then he's taking the dog out. So it's not about you saying, when we're setting boundaries, it's not about us saying, I am not doing this. It's starting off kind of more gently and just having a discussion with people about where you are really at, what you need, and having a negotiation from there. And I know that when I started doing this with David, it opened the door for him to start doing it with me. So the first step really is to remember that by setting boundaries, you are helping people. You're setting an example. You're letting them know it's safe to set boundaries with you. The second step to setting the boundary is starting small. You want to start with something, with someone compassionate, with someone who you know is not going to blow up with you. And the third step, the third thing I want you to remember here is that it's like building a muscle. I was thinking about this a few weeks ago, and I was setting a massive boundary, and I was like, holy heck. This is a boundary that's 100 times what I used to not be able to set 5 years ago. And I was setting it fine. And I think that it's interesting to see, it keeps building on it. I mean, it keeps setting boundaries, keeps building on a skill. It keeps, it's like a muscle. It's like going to the gym, that you're strengthening this muscle. And I see this, when I look up to people who I look up to, I just kind of sometimes think about sports players or celebrities or really respectable CEOs of companies. And they have learned how to set boundaries. And it's not about I don't want to do this so I can sleep. It's about, I don't want to do this because I have a bigger goal. There's something bigger that I'm supposed to be doing. And by me, by me going to dinner with you tonight, I am going to be choosing a priority that's not important to me in lieu of going to bed early and resting up so I can get this paper written, so I could work on my book, so I could work on this big project that's really important to me. So it's not selfish to set boundaries. It's really about prioritizing you, prioritizing what's important to you. I can tell you that by setting boundaries, so much has changed in my life. I've gotten to know myself better. I've gotten to see what I really want to be doing, and it's really helped guide me as I have evolved over these past several years. It's helped me when I am not drained by doing things for other people that I don't want to be doing. I don't really have anger. I don't have frustration. I don't have resentment. I have so much more energy and bandwidth to be able to think and contemplate and work towards the things that are important to me. I've gotten to know myself better by setting boundaries. And as I've been working on my goals and working on building the life that I want for myself, by setting these boundaries, I've had the energy and the resources to be able to go after them. I think everything in life changes when we set boundaries. Boundary setting is so important, and it's not something, just remember this, it's not something that we just learn one day and check a box and we're done. We're constantly meeting new people. We're engaging in different relationships. Everybody has their past traumas, their limiting beliefs, their history with boundary setting. So it's always a negotiation, but once you start thinking about it, like this isn't me saying, screw you, I'm not doing this, and it's more opening up the doors for a conversation about what we really need, what two people need or a group of people need, we start to look at it differently, and we see boundary setting as more of a practice of engaging with one another. None of us should be doing things that don't feel good. This doesn't mean that we don't have responsibilities. This doesn't mean that every part of our day is going to be perfect. There are things we all have to do. We all have to take the trash out. We all have to wash the dishes. We all have to do laundry. We all have to do administrative work. We all have to wash the car. At work, there's plenty of things on everybody's plate that we don't have to do. And what I've realized is that by setting boundaries, opening these doors, opening these communication channels with people, I've got to really engage in conversation in relationships about this. And everyone's on the same page. We all have things in life that we don't want to do. There's parts of all relationships where we have to just compromise sometimes. But a relationship shouldn't be 80% compromise. A relationship should probably be more like 20% compromise and 80% us getting our needs pretty completely met. So I want to just thank you for joining me today. I promise you, boundary setting it is probably the most important part of my life, the most important skill I've learned. It's one of the things that I love working with my clients on, because once we start setting boundaries, everything in our life has the potential to change. So just remember, by you setting boundaries, you are being kind, you are teaching other people, you are showing them that they can set boundaries too. It's like a chain reaction, and our world would be so much kinder if everyone learned how to compassionately speak up for what they needed and not be passive-aggressive, angry people. Secondly, start small. Start with people you trust, people you love. It might be messy at first. There might be tears. So start with somebody who's going to be compassionate and going to be able to support you, and that you can support them. It's a two-way street. And remember, if someone reacts completely crazy, that's on them. And it's better to learn that now than it is to learn that later. If someone's really that much of a loose cannon, has a problem with you setting boundaries, you probably don't need them in your life. And remember that there is that immediate payoff to setting boundaries. You're getting yourself out of a situation that sucks. And third, this is a muscle that is being built. Setting boundaries will build and build as time goes on, and you will get better. You will get stronger at it. It will eventually become second nature, and it will become something that you're not afraid of, even in tough situations. We are allowed to take care of ourselves and put ourselves first. It's why in airplanes, they say, put your oxygen mask on first before putting your neighbor's. And think about that for a second. The reason because that isn't because you're being selfish. It's because if you run out of oxygen, you are not able to help anybody else. If you run out of resources, energies, if you are being walked all over, how are you going to help other people? You're not. Thanks for joining me today. I want to remind you that I am a transformative, high-performance growth coach. I work with entrepreneurs, executives who are looking to get a handle on the stress and anxiety that they have in their lives. And if that is you, I invite you to schedule a free coaching call. I call it a support session, and you will leave this call with a complete breakthrough. And I would love to talk with you and see how I can support you on your journey. Thank you so much. And my favorite thing in the world are comments, questions, and I would really appreciate hearing from anybody who has anything to say about what you're learning, what you'd like to hear more about. It would mean so much to me. Have a good day.